Okay, let's get started. My name's Wendy Fenton, and I'm the coordinator of the Humanitarian Practice Network here at ODI. I'd like to welcome you and our online audience. We've got about 105 people, I believe, watching online. To today's launch of issue 63 of the Humanitarian Exchange. And I think you'll have copies on your seats. It's also online on our website. This issue of the Exchange focuses on lessons from the humanitarian response to Typhoon Haiyan, which is the worst disaster ever to hit the Philippines. It made landfall on the 8th of November, just over a year ago, and it killed over 6,000 people and affected more than 14 million. And it also triggered a rapid and large-scale national and international level 3 response. And the authors who contributed to this edition of the Exchange cover a whole range of practice-related issues, approaches, and lessons learned, including around cash programming, because there was also a huge cash-based response, shelter, the private sector response, the government's early warning system, and the limits of disaster risk reduction and the limits of that, amongst other issues. And I urge you to read all of these articles because I think you'll find them very interesting. But at today's event, we really want to hone in on accountability to affected populations and relatedly partnerships with national and local actors. And before I introduce our panel, I just wanted to go through a bit of housekeeping. So please do put your phones on silent, but feel free to tweet. And the hashtag is Haiyan. I think it's up here on the screens. And do hold your questions and comments until we open the floor for discussion in about 45 minutes or so. And I hope you'll be able to join us for lunch afterwards and more discussion and networking in the business lounge outside. So now let me introduce our panel. On my left is Alex Jacobs, and he's the Director of Program Quality at Plan International, where he leads Plan International's work to improve the quality and accountability of their work. And before Plan, he founded and led for 10 years the award-winning charity Mango, which I know all of you have heard of. And previously, he worked in Central and Southern Africa with a variety of NGOs, notably Oxfam GB. Joining us by phone link is Olaf Neusner. Olaf, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
Yes, and I'm sorry that Olaf couldn't join us by video conference. We couldn't arrange the access to the facilities, but we've got a very good phone connection. And Olaf is a freelance consultant who's worked in relief and development assistance for 25 years. And he's been based in the Philippines since 1995, so knows the country and the region well. He worked most recently with GIZ in disaster risk management, where he concentrated on early warning systems and hazard, vulnerability, and risk mapping. And he was previously the regional coordinator of the German organization Capacity Building International. On my far right is Nikki Bailey, who is the Research and Learning Officer at the Communication with Disaster Affected Communities Network, or CDAC, as most of us know it. And she previously worked as a Monitoring Evaluation Officer for Merlin in the DRC and conducted research on evaluating health worker training programs in the UK and Malawi. So welcome to Nikki. And then last but not least, on my immediate right is Mike Noyes, who is the head of humanitarian response at Action Aid UK. And during this period, he served as on the advisory group for the Missed Again research project, which he's going to talk a bit about later, on partnership in the Typhoon Haiyan response. And I'm sure many of you know him in his previous roles with CAFOD and Christian Aid. So what I'd like to do now is to start off with asking the panel a few questions to get some discussion going. We're going to open the floor, as I said, in 45 minutes, and then we want to hear from you in terms of questions, comments, observations, both you in the room and those who are watching online. But I just wanted to highlight, I was hoping to get Barb Wigley, who was the Accountability to Affected Populations Coordinator in the Philippines, on our panel. But she's currently in Erbil with WFP, and so it was a little bit difficult to arrange. But Barb was deployed as the AAP coordinator, as I said, in the aftermath of Typhoon Haiyan. And she says that accountability to affected populations, or AAP, is about using power responsibly and seeing the people we seek to assist as our equals. She says AAP should reinforce the right of affected people to receive and have influence over assistance safely and with dignity and choice. If we put accountability mechanisms in place but fail to ensure that the most vulnerable and marginalized can access them, or if we speak only to those with political and social power, we risk strengthening social exclusion and marginalization. And Barb wrote an article for us about creating a culture of accountability, which you'll see in the edition. And she says that the experience of agencies that appear to have been more successful than others in embedding a culture of accountability within their practices shows, quote, that it is the commitment of their leaders to the cause, rather than the specific tools they choose or they chose to implement it, that makes it stick. Later in her article, she says the tools and mechanisms have increasingly become an end in themselves rather than a means through which the primary purpose of accountability to affected populations can be achieved. And what I want to hear from our panelists now is, do you agree with these statements? And if so, why? And if not, why not? And I think I'm going to start with Nikki here at the end.